dared. In a time of war and fear, a giant rose to challenge an entire nation. But no one dared to face him, until a boy with a slingshot came forward. The scene is set in the valley of Elah. On one side, the Israelites, on the other, the Philistines. Day after day, a terrifying figure steps out from the Philistine camp. His name is Goliath, a champion from Gath. He's nearly 10 feet tall, armored in bronze from head to toe. His spear is like a weaver's beam, and his words cut deeper than his weapons. Why are you even lined up for battle? Choose a man and let him fight me. If he wins, we'll be your servants, but if I win, you'll be ours. For 40 days, Goliath mocks Israel, morning and evening, and every time fear spreads like wildfire through the Israelite camp. Have you seen that man? Who can fight him? He's too big, too strong. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. A nation trembling, a king hiding, a giant undefeated. But everything is about to change. While fear ruled the battlefield, a young shepherd was miles away, watching sheep. He had no armor, no sword, but he had something far greater. David was the youngest of 8 sons. His 3 oldest brothers were with King Saul facing the Philistines. But David, he was back home, tending sheep. While others chased glory in battle, David was faithful in the quiet places protecting sheep, playing the harp, worshiping God under the stars. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalm 23 reference. One day, David's father, Jesse, called him in from the fields. David, take these supplies to your brothers. Find out how they're doing and bring me word. David didn't hesitate. He left early the next morning, entrusted the sheep to a keeper, and set off for the battlefield, unaware that his journey would change history. As David reached the camp, the armies were lining up. Shouts of war echoed through the valley, and David arrived just in time to hear the roar of the giant. Who is this man defying the armies of the living God? Once again, Goliath stepped forward, his voice echoing through the valley. The same insult, the same fear. Choose a man to fight me. Where is your champion, Israel? David heard it this time, and something stirred within him. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? While the others cowered, David questioned, and the people were stunned. They told him about the reward King Saul had promised: riches, royal favor, and marriage to the king's daughter. But what about God's honor? Doesn't that matter more? Not everyone was impressed. David's own brother, Eliab, snapped at him. Why are you here? You're just a boy. Go back to those few sheep. What have I done now? Can't I even speak? David's words traveled fast all the way to King Saul. The boy's boldness would earn him a royal audience and a chance to change history. David's bold words reached King Saul, and the boy was summoned. While the king hoped for answers, what he got was even more surprising. Let no one lose heart because of this Philistine. I, your servant, will go and fight him. The room fell silent. A teenager unarmed, untrained, was offering to face the most feared warrior in the land. You're just a boy, David. He's been a warrior since his youth. But David wasn't discouraged. He shared his past battles, fought in secret, victories no one else saw. I've killed lions and bears protecting my father's sheep. The Lord who rescued me then will rescue me now. Saul looked into David's eyes and saw something no one else had: unshakable faith. Go, and the Lord be with you. It wasn't just permission, it was a prophecy. Saul gave David his royal armor, heavy, impressive, kingly. But it didn't fit. It wasn't David. I cannot go in these, I'm not used to them. David would fight with what God gave him, not man's approval, not royal tools, just a staff, a sling, and faith. King Saul dressed David in his royal armor, bronze helmet, heavy coat of mail, even the king's sword. It was all too much. I cannot go in these, I'm not used to them. David didn't just reject metal and leather. He rejected the idea that victory comes from appearances or tradition. David stepped away from the armor and into the valley, not as a soldier, but as a shepherd. In his hand, a simple sling. He bent down by a stream and picked 5 smooth stones. No shield, no backup, just a boy, a sling, in the name of the Lord. The battle is the Lord's. While the Philistines laughed, heaven leaned in. David didn't look like a warrior, but he was exactly the kind of person God uses. He wasn't trusting his skill, he was trusting his source. David stepped onto the battlefield. No armor, no sword, just a shepherd's sling and the presence of God. Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks? Come here, and I'll feed your flesh to the birds. The giant roared. The crowd watched. But David wasn't afraid. You come at me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I come at you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and all the earth will know there is a God in Israel. David wasn't fighting for fame, he was fighting for God's name. Goliath advanced with fury. David didn't wait, he ran toward the giant. In one motion, David reached into his bag, pulled out a stone, and slung it with precision. As Goliath charged, David didn't hesitate. He ran forward, loaded his sling, and let the stone fly. The stone struck Goliath right in the forehead. The giant stopped, staggered, and collapsed face first to the ground. And he fell on his face to the earth. Silence fell over both armies. The invincible warrior was dead, taken down not by a sword, but by faith. David had no sword, yet he had the victory. The battle belongs to the Lord. David ran, stood over Goliath, and took the giant's own sword from its sheath. With one strike, the battle was over. The Philistines fled in terror, and Israel charged after them, energized by one boy's courage. The Philistines watched their champion collapse. Panic swept through their ranks. They turned and ran. The Israelite army, now roaring with courage, pursued them all the way to Gath and Ekron. The enemy was routed. God has delivered us. David returned with Goliath's head in hand and the giant's sword as proof. He wasn't a soldier, but he was now a legend. Even King Saul was stunned. "Who is this young man?" he asked. "He is the son of Jesse from Bethlehem." The shepherd boy no one noticed became the warrior everyone would remember. But David didn't fight for fame or reward. He fought to defend the name of the Lord, that all the earth may know there is a God in Israel. This wasn't just a story of courage, it was a story of calling. We all face giants, fear, doubt, failure. But David's story reminds us, when you trust in God, even the impossible can fall. Thanks for joining us on this journey through David and Goliath. Like, share, and subscribe, and stay